We're going to revisit the hypotheses that you worked on earlier in this chapter. You'll notice that there's still some extra space there for things to fill out. So you're going to revisit those and identify whether the alternative hypothesis is left, right, or two-tailed. And then based on the p-value and the significance level alpha that they gave you, decide whether you do or do not reject the null hypothesis. So let's take a look at this first one together. The packaging on a light bulb states that the bulb will last 500 hours under normal use. A consumer advocate would like to know if the mean lifetime of a bulb is less than 500 hours. So our null hypothesis is that mu is equal to 500, and our alternative was mu is less than 500. So that less than is telling us that we have a left tail test. And then if our p-value is 2% and our alpha is 5%, that means p is smaller. So there's this saying, if p is low, the null must go. If that helps you remember that, great. But essentially what we care about is that p is smaller than alpha. So we do reject the null hypothesis. And so what that means in context of this story is that we do have evidence the mean lifetime of a bulb is less than 500 hours. All right, so you have 5 more of these left in your notes. Go through and identify left, right, or two-tail, and then decide whether you do or do not reject the null hypothesis. All right, let's take a look at the next one together. The Blue Book value of a used 3-year-old Chevy Corvette is $37,500. Grant wonders if the mean price of a used 3-year-old Chevy Corvette in the Miami metro area is different than the $37,500. So our null was mu equals $37,500, and our alternative was mu is not equal to $37,500. So that not equal is telling us that we have a two-tailed test. And then with a p-value of 6% against an alpha of 5%, that means our p is bigger than alpha. So we do not reject the null hypothesis. And in context of this problem, that means we do not have evidence that the mean price of a Corvette is different than $37,500. According to popcorn.org, the mean consumption of popcorn annually by Americans is 54 quarts. The marketing division of popcorn.org unleashes an aggressive campaign designed to get Americans to consume even more popcorn. Was their campaign successful? Again, our null was mu is equal to 54, and our alternative is mu is greater than 54. So greater than is on that right side of the distribution, which is what tells us we have a right tail test. Our p-value here is 0.015. So as a percent, that would be 1.5%. That is smaller than a 5% alpha. So we do reject the null hypothesis. So in context of this story, we do have evidence the mean popcorn eaten is more than 54 quarts. A dog food company claims that its special diet mix will allow Labrador retrievers to live to a mean age of 15 years. A consumer group says that this claim is overstated and that the actual average or mean is less than the company's claim. So our null was mu is equal to 15, and our alternative was mu is less than 15. That less than is giving us a left tail test. And here my p-value is 5.4%. So that's just slightly bigger than our 5% alpha. And it doesn't matter if it's slightly bigger or fantastically bigger, it's still bigger than alpha. So we do not reject the null hypothesis. So in context of this problem, we do not have evidence the mean age of the dogs is less than 15 years. The FDA claims that the amount of vitamin C in tablets produced by a company is not the advertised 500 milligrams. So our null was mu is equal to 500, and our alternative was that mu is not equal to 500. That makes this a two-tailed test. With a p-value of 8% compared to a 5% alpha, we do not reject since our p-value is bigger. So we do not reject the null hypothesis. So the story in this context is that we do not have evidence the mean amount of vitamin C is not 500 milligrams. All right, last one. The board of a major credit card company requires that the mean wait time for customers for service calls is 3 minutes. To make sure that the mean wait time is not exceeding the requirement, an assignment manager tracks the wait times of 45 randomly selected calls to determine if there is sufficient evidence to say that the mean wait time is longer than 3 minutes at the 2% significance level. So our null was that mu is equal to 3, and our alternative was mu is greater than 3. So that gives us a right tail test. And this time the alpha or significance level was given to us in the problem. So notice that I switched alpha to be 0.02 for that 2%. Now, if we have a p-value of 3% versus the 2% alpha, p is bigger here. And so we do not reject our null hypothesis. So in context of this story, we do not have evidence the mean call time is greater than 3 minutes. All right, so hopefully you're feeling a little bit better about identifying the left, right, or two-tail and whether you reject or do not reject. And I want to give you one little quick note about the hypotheses. The biggest mistake I see people make is that they forget to include the character mu in there. They'll write h with a little 0 next to it, and they'll write equals 3. You have to include that mu. So that's just kind of a tip to help you. That's a common place people trip up. And now that we've kind of covered a lot of these pieces of the hypothesis test, we're going to put this all together in something called the phantoms method. So come back in the next video and we'll look at how we do a hypothesis test from start to finish.